Welcome to this FAI Coach Education Webinar. I'm Gareth Maher and I'm delighted to be joined by Republic of Ireland Under-16s men's head coach and coach education tutor Paul Osam. Today's topic will be the preparation and execution for an international tournament. I think coaches of all levels, whether it's grassroots or elite, will gain a lot from this and a lot of good insights from Paul on what happens. At the end of the webinar, or towards the end of it, Paul will outline an assignment that all coaches can partake in, and there's 3 hours of CPD that is available for coaches who complete that assignment. Details will come shortly on that. Paul, just to start off with things, we had a question in about your development as a coach. We can see kind of just behind you in the background there, St. Pat's jersey. You had a long career with St. Patrick's Athletic, and also one of your framed photographs there is the Hall of Fame for St. Pat's, which kind of shows you the measure of how well your career went with the club. How did you transition from being a player into a coach?
Firstly, Gareth, I'm delighted to be here today to speak about my experiences and bring coaches through a week of international football in under-16 tournament. So it'll be quite interesting to feel for everybody who's tuned in. I'm sure everybody will gain something from it. For me, going from player to coach was extremely difficult transition. I think it is for most players, particularly who would have been lucky enough to play at a high level, when they decide to hang up the boots and take up a coaching career. For me, I felt like I knew everything when I stopped playing and started coaching. At first, it was with St. Pat's on the 21s. Looking back now, I probably had a lot of ingredients to be a good coach, but I had no recipe. That's an analogy I use. I had a lot of learning throughout my career, but didn't know how to put it all together. It was hit and miss. It was a little bit haphazard. I was probably doing things that were quite good, but I had no idea why I was doing them. And the result of that is that players aren't really learning. They may be getting little bits of learning, but there's no structure to it. There's no real thought put into it. There's no process. There's no reflection. It was just done because it was what I probably liked when I was a player. And it can be difficult, difficult for players, because one of the key things for me with coaching is that you've got to look upon the players as individuals, because they are all different individuals. Anyone who's been in a dressing room, it's made up of all different characters. There's no two people are the same. So I probably would have looked at things early on in my coaching career, and it's a well used phrase that people use, that you want to treat the players the way you wanted to be treated, or you like to be treated. And I don't think it's true, because no player is the same as I was. So if I'm giving them what I liked, I'm not really fulfilling their needs, and they're not really going to develop. So you've got to look at each one as an individual. That's just one learning I would have got from throughout my coaching career. So I suppose when I started with St. Pat's, I had a B licence from many years previous through a previous regime of coach education in the FAI. So I wasn't really up to date with modern trends in coaching, and didn't really have a process of how to coach, the why, the when, the where to coach. So I was lucky enough to get a job in the association as a development officer. I think it's close on 10 years now. And through that process, then I went back into coach education and to educate myself through the FAI Coach Education Framework, which is based on UEFA's reality-based learning, and it's completely coach-centered. My experience of it as a coach and now as a tutor, lucky enough, it's just been fantastic learning. It's structured. It's based on competencies. There are 7 course competencies that kind of act as a roadmap for coaches to try and master those competencies. And if you do that, you will learn, you will improve, you reflect upon yourself. One of the biggest aspects of the competencies for me is self-reflection, being self-aware of where I'm at, what I'm doing, how effective it is it effective, seeking feedback from peers throughout the courses. You've peer-to-peer learning, which is fantastic. You've got trips away to other countries to learn from other coaches. I know on the pro license we went to UEFA HQ with other countries, and the learnings there with top class coaches from around the world is fantastic. And I was lucky enough to go to Germany at one stage on a UEFA study visit, again through the coach education department. And you're there with coaches, administrators from all other associations, and just the learnings are massive. So really, to sum it up, how it's developed, I'm still developing. And if I go back to the analogy of ingredients and a recipe, I have the ingredients which I've developed over the years, and I probably have a method now which will be the recipe, but still a lot of the time when you try and perfect the recipe, it doesn't come out right, and that's part and parcel of learning and lifelong learning and continuing to develop as much as you possibly can throughout your coaching career, because you'll always learn. Every day you learn something new, and particularly being involved in international football, it's a great environment to learn, because you're up against the best from whatever country you're playing against. And also, as you mentioned, working as a tutor now in coach education department, I was lucky enough to get a job working in that environment just over a year ago. Again, that's taught me massive amounts of. I'm now trying to impart my learnings and my knowledge as a coach now and transfer it into a tutor to try and help the coaches. And it runs parallel as well to what I spoke about with players. As a coach, you've got to treat each individual player as an individual and not have a one-fits-all kind of approach. And it's the same with being a tutor. You really got to look at the individual needs of the coaches that come on the courses and try and help them develop in the best way you can for them to make them better coaches.
Paul, you mentioned self-reflection there. I think that's an interesting point when you transition from a player to coach, because like as I've outlined, like you were a very good player, you're very notable in the League of Ireland throughout your career. So is there a sense of, that you had to kind of be humble enough, or, maybe be brought back down to earth a little bit, kind of saying, okay, I think I know it all as a player to a level, but now I need to go into a different stage of my career now as a coach?
Yeah, I can vividly remember early days of coaching at St. Pat's on the 21s, and there would be a certain amount of frustration during sessions with players. And why can't they do this, and why can't they do that, and they should know this and they should know that. And really, it was down to probably ignorance on my behalf, or probably having a closed mind. I think is a massive aspect of any learning. You've got to open up your mind. And for years, I had a closed mind, and it was really only when I went back into the association and I was asked to coach on the Emerging Talent Programme by Niall Harrison. And all of a sudden then I was out of my comfort zone, because now I had to be structured. There was a certain part of the programme that you had to follow, certain sessions and do session plans and feedback, and all of a sudden I'm going, I'm not very comfortable doing this. So I think you come to a point where you either sink or swim, and you say, look, and I did come to that point, and I've no problem saying that, where I came to a crossroads and felt I can't do this. I can't be that kind of coach. I'm not used to structure around things, because when you're a player, you're in charge of your own destiny as such. But when you're a coach, it's completely different. And I remember having a long chat with Niall and Paul Nicholson, and they just told me to stick at it. They said, look, you've just got to get a process for yourself. You have a lot of knowledge, which again, I go back, would probably be the ingredients to be a good coach, but I didn't have that recipe. So I stuck at it and went back and did my A licence, and had some great tutors during the A licence, some great experiences. Worked with some great coaches as well during the A licence, who've gone on to, a lot of them, Alan Reynolds, for example, Jim Crawford around the A licence. So you're learning from these people as well, but you don't have an open mind, you're wasting your time. You may as well just not do any courses. You may as well just throw the hat in and say, because you're not going to learn, you're not going to develop unless you have an open mind. So that was a big thing for me, going in that transition, and it took years to get to the stage where you have an open mind. And then when you have an open mind, then it's that whole thing of being starting off being unconsciously incompetent and developing. And when you realise what you don't know is when you start learning, to me. And that was the process for me, and it's still ongoing, and I don't know everything, far from it. And every time we play a game, every time we have a training session, you're learning something all the time. So it's been a long road for me, and I don't think there's any easy way to develop. I think you've got to put the work in, and you've got to open up your mind, and you've got to be in the correct environment as well to learn.
And to take that structure that you learned, as you said there, first from the Emerging Talent Programme to now your role with the Ireland Under-16s. So the topic of this is to prepare and execute for an international tournament. As we look at your itinerary, what's the first starting point in all of this when you start to build an itinerary? Like where do you start it all off?
Well, it starts, long before the itinerary, really. The event we're going to speak about today would be an international tournament, which is an annual event for the under-16s, the UEFA Development Tournament, which took place in Israel last May, June. So really, it starts from the time that you get the invitation and you link in with we all have, all the underage managers have a team operations executive who looks after all the logistics for you. And that's when it starts. And there are a lot of logistical problems, obviously, with traveling to Israel. And there's a time difference. There's also cultural difference. You're looking at the times of flights. Can you get direct flights? So all this stuff has to be taken into account. And it's done in conjunction mainly by the team operations executive who will be in communication with myself and with Gareth that this is what we can do, this is when we can fly, these are the flight times, you've got to fly through, in that case, to fly through Germany, and we're up very early in the morning, so you look at what's the best path we can take to get to wherever we're going to. It's all about optimising the performance for the players and making it as much a smooth transition from Ireland to whatever country you're going to. That's the very, very start of it. And once those kind of things are put in place, there will be ongoing meetings with all staff, and it's quite an extensive staff that we have at the international team. We've got a team operations executive, an assistant head coach, goalkeeper coach, video analyst, kit man, and we'll have more than likely we'll have some team executives traveling with us as well. So it's a party of 9 to 10 players. Obviously a doctor and physio as well travel with us on all events. So there's a lot of meetings with the staff, more so the technical staff around logistics of it, and then you're onto the squad, to picking a squad, which is is quite difficult because there are lots of good players. So you've got to announce the squad then and give the clubs and the players and the notification of the event coming up and that they're either in the squad or they're on a standby list. And you're going, you're interacting with the clubs in the UK, if there are any UK players, the clubs in Ireland, and with the coaches there, just to see the loading of the players coming into camp. So we don't want to be overloading players. We want to make sure that they're as fresh as possible. So we need to know what they've done in the preceding 2 to 3 weeks. So all the information is gathered with myself, the assistant coach, the physio, the doctor, to see where players are at when they come in. And then they come into camp, and that'll be the starter. So they'll arrive in camp. It's normally match day -3 when the players will arrive, and we take them there then. So it's a 7 to 9 day event, and we take into consideration from the time we meet up till the time we arrive back to Ireland on this occasion, and it consists of 3 matches. So what I'm going to do today is more or less go through the itinerary just to highlight to coaches watching the detail that goes into the itinerary. It's not just a case of jumping on a plane, going to a country and deciding when you get there, we train now today, or we train at 5 o'clock this evening, or what time we have our lunch at today. It's all pre-planned, and it's all pre-planned. In the forefront of your mind is to optimise the performance of the players in the game. So lots of learnings for me over the years as well in itineraries. Sometimes you make mistakes in your itinerary, and you learn from that, and you just try and do your best then going forward to ensure that your itinerary to me is like periodisation of time. I know lots of coaches watching will look upon periodisation, of the season, of what they do in their sessions and so on. For me, doing an itinerary is periodising the time that you're going to be away, and optimising that time to get the best performances from the players.
Paul, before we jump into the actual breakdown of the itinerary, can I just rewind for just 1 second, just when you mentioned the squad selection there? When you're taking into account that it's going to be a tournament, 3 games over a short period of time, as you mentioned there, do you have to really consider different types of players? Like, would you have to pick a couple of more versatile players that can cover different positions in case you get injuries, or are you simply picking the right type of players that that you're picking the best of the best, really?
Yeah, it's a conundrum, because sometimes I'll just take it in 2 parts. The first part might be just what players you bring, and sometimes you have to bring players to see can they perform at the level, because there's no substitute for international football. So lots of players are very, very close to international football, and you see them playing with the club, and they may be doing really, really well at the club. But sometimes you look and say they may not have the attributes to play international football, because they might be just a little bit quicker, and their actions may need to be quicker. They may need to cover the ground. Well, they will need to cover the ground a lot quicker at international football. So sometimes you've got to bring players to either rule them in or rule them out. And that might sound harsh, but it's the reality of it. And a lot of the time you bring a player to see you can be surprised that he was well able to cope with the step up to the international level. Then you've got other players who are at that level. They may have been in prior, and you can just see by their performances with their club and in assessment games that they have the attributes to play at the level. So there's a mixture of, because it's not all about winning for us at under 16. Yeah, the objective of the game obviously is to win, but we need to develop players for the under 17s, and there's not much point in me not looking at some players who I feel are very close during the under 16 season, and then come on the 17 season and they go to Colin O'Brien, and Colin asks me, could player B play at international level? And I say, well, I don't know because I never tried him. So there's an element that we have to try him. When it comes to the actual picking of the squad, then you've got that aspect. And then the personnel, you're speaking of versatile players and positions, how many players you bring in each position, it varies. For me, when we've got a squad of 18, which it's normally 18 to 20, we could bring 22, it'd be ideal. You'd have 2 players for each position, and you can just rotate and give everybody a start in the tournaments. When we bring 18, I'll always bring 2 goalkeepers, 6 defenders, 6 midfielders I like to bring. So you're covering the midfield area where you've got 2 for each position. The attacking areas can be a little bit difficult because you really want to bring some players who can play as a centre forward maybe and as a wide player, or an attacking midfielder who maybe has to play as a wide player, or number 10 who plays as centre forward. Ideally, if you can get that mix, it's fantastic then, because you cover everywhere. And likewise, in the defence, I like to bring 6 defenders. Sometimes you have to bring 7 because you may have centre backs who can just play at centre back, can't play as full backs. If you have a centre back who can also play as a full back, it's a bonus. But you're not going to bring him if he's just okay at centre back and just okay at full back. He still has to be to the level, the standard of international football in both positions. So they're not too easy to come across players who can play in 2 positions at that level. So it can be challenging to pick a squad and get the balance of the squad right. But I think with experience and that's where your staff as well, obviously your assistant head coach will come in, is invaluable there, and also your video analysts from previous games. And throughout the year we all go scouting games all around the country. All the technical staff will. So we have a fair idea of where players are at and what their capacities are to play. I know, it is, as I mentioned, if you can get a striker who can play in another position. I know this current group, Tom Lonigan from St. Pat's would have been a number 10 striker with his club, and probably never really played wide, but we played him wide as an attacking player on the right. It's been fantastic for us this year. He scored lots of goals playing in that position, so it's a bonus for a player like that. So we can play Tom as a centre forward, we can play him as a number 10, and we know we can play him out wide right as well. So he's probably one of those players that can perform to a high level in 3 different positions. But as I said, they're few and far between.
And how do you find the process of actually informing the players? Is that done through your team operations executives, or would you personally kind of contact clubs, players? I suppose it's a bit difficult, isn't it, because they're younger players you're dealing with here?
Yeah, well, first off, to say, for child protection reasons, obviously we can't have direct contact with the players. But even if it was the older ages, there's a process in place within the association where there's a call process, which is done through the international department in conjunction with your team operations executive. So you just give them the list of players that you want to call. We have a database of all the players' contacts, the club, and lots of players change clubs. So you've got to keep on top of that a player changes club, that the international department is notified, because there have been rare occasions where a player would change club. We wouldn't know about it. The invitation sent to what's now his old club, who may have to hunt because he's left and they don't notify him. So that can happen on a rare occasion. But we also notify the players' parents through their email. So those things are kind of not as common as they may have been previously. So the invitation will go normally 15 days before the event. It'll go to the club for the club to notify the player, and it will also go to the player's parent. So that's the process of call. You've also got to nominate standby players as well, because on occasion, players may get sick before the event, they may get injured before the event, or they may even get injured in event, which happened to me in one of my very early trips away, and it was a big challenge then. If you'd gone away, it was the first training session we had, and a player got injured, so we had to ignite then the process of bringing in a standby player, and it was daunting for me at the time. We were away in Hungary, thousands of miles away. Who do you call in? This is the first question. Have we put enough players on standby to cover every position? Because you look a little bit silly if you lost a goalkeeper and you haven't got a goalkeeper on standby. So we have to make sure that standby list covers all areas as well. And on this occasion, it was actually Aaron Connolly. It was in Hungary, maybe I think it was 4 years ago, at a development tournament. And unfortunately, Aaron got injured in the first game. Sorry, in the first training session. When we just arrived, so we had to look at the standby list and see who we could get. And it's difficult, and that's where your team operations becomes invaluable. And all the logistics of getting on. The player we got was actually Adam Ida, who was a year younger, but he was doing so well with the under 15s that we had him on standby for the under 16s. And as it transpired, we tried to contact him. He was at trial, I think it was with Aston Villa. He was in the UK with Aston Villa, so we had to try and get him from Aston Villa to Telki in Budapest, just outside Budapest, quite quickly. So it was challenging, but the team operations executive got on the case, and we got him to London, and our scout in London, Mark O'Toole, met him and his mother in the train station, got him onto a flight to Budapest, where our team representative went to the airport with the team operations executive, with the head of delegation, and they picked up Adam and brought Adam into camp. And we kept Aaron there as well, because we didn't feel it'd be right to send him home. So they're challenges that you come up with in international football, and we have the processes in place to be able to get a player in. And it was all done very, very quick transition from Aston Villa to Telki very quickly. And Adam went on and played in the tournament. He's gone on to be very successful to date, and hopefully he goes on and develops even further.
Yeah, not a bad replacement to bring in Adam Ida, but
decent, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point about you're talking. Obviously, we're talking at an international level here, and you've got different staff members helping you out as well. I think for coaches that might be kind of preparing for grassroots tournaments, or different types of tournaments that as well. Like just that thing you just spoke about there, talking about speaking to players that are underage as well. If anybody has any questions, they can contact the FAI Child Welfare Department and get feedback on what's the best practice on those sort of areas and the best ways of kind of dealing with players as well. But let's move on a bit, Paul, just to your itinerary and the kind of first day that you land. You mentioned earlier it's kind of match day -3, so you don't have a huge amount of time to kind of prepare for the games. It's kind of once you land, you're straight into it. So everything, every hour and every slot of the day is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why it's got to be planned meticulously to try and optimize every hour, down to small, maybe trivial things, but they're not trivial. How long does it take to get from the team hotel to the training ground? And there's no point in leaving an hour before training if the journey is only 20 minutes. So all these things need to be taken into consideration. Traffic, what time are we training at? Because you don't want to get caught in traffic if you're in a city in Tel Aviv, or in this occasion in Israel, and you're traveling maybe across the city to a training ground. And it wasn't the case in this situation, but you don't be stuck in traffic. I can recall being away previously, and we were in a major European city, and we were stuck at a T-junction in the middle of the city for about 15 minutes. The bus driver just couldn't turn because it was just a constant flow of traffic both ways. So all these things need to be taken into consideration, and all that's done, and you learn a lot when you're away as well. We need to make sure the next time that this is not the way. And table service at the hotel, it has to be buffet. You don't play sitting around for hours waiting to get served. The food as well, the menu in the hotel is all pre-booked through the doctor, physio, with the catering people in the hotel. It can be challenging in some countries, obviously cultural differences, different kinds of food. We always seem to overcome it, because most of the hotels we go to will be used to catering with football teams anyway. But every hour of the day is set, and it can become a little bit repetitive, and you want that, because players like routine when they're away. They like to get up at the same time. They like to know that they're having their breakfast. They like to know they're going training, and they like to know then their free time. And if you can keep it as much routine as possible, it's a lot better for everybody. But unfortunately, it's not possible, because we don't dictate the kickoff times, and you can see from the itinerary that kickoff times vary, and that's a big challenge into when you eat, when you have your meetings, when the players have free time, what time you go to bed at the night before. if you're up really early, can you give the players a lie on? Is it a later kickoff? So everything is planned and everything is geared towards optimizing the player's ability to perform on match day and on kickoff on match day. So yeah, lots in the itineraries, and that's going to be part of the task. Well, it's going to be the task for the coaches watching in to create an itinerary based around a scenario which we'll speak about toward the end of the webinar.
In terms of, you mentioned there is for the players coming into you, like this is an introduction to a structure that they're going to have to get used to if they want to have a professional career. They're 15, 16, so they're still very much young men. So getting used to the routine and the structure of it in terms of team meetings, how, to relax during their downtime, team meals, all that kind of stuff. So that's all really important as well, isn't it? That they get used to this kind of structure of it.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I'm kind of. They've had a year with Jason at the under 15 level, and we'd be very, very similar. Our methods of coaching and our itineraries will be quite similar throughout all the ages. So the players will, most of them, some of them won't have been in at 15 or may not be in squads or whatever, but most of them will have had a year of that kind of routine of coming in, and really they conform to, because we have a meeting when they come in first, and it's all about how the week is going to go. Expectations, behaviours. I don't want to call them rules. Just behaviours of the players. What's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and they create this list, this document of accepted behaviours on the pitch and off the pitch. So that's always a reference point, and that's done on the 15 level as well. So there's no ambiguity. Players know what the behaviours are, accepted behaviours are, and you can always refer back and say, look, it's all stuck up in our meeting room, and this is what you said about behaviour on the bus, being polite to people around the hotel, your language, and how you carry yourself. Your jersey, your t-shirt tucked in, you go around your tracksuit bottoms rolled up, all these kind of things. So all of the kind of standards for the week that they're away with us have already been implemented on the 15, and it's not really a problem. I think the players enjoy it because I think they see the benefits of the structure, and it's a lot easier for them just to roll in and say, yeah, this is good. Like, we're eating now because we need to fuel ourselves because we're training in 2 hours or whatever, 3 hours, and we've got to get straight back to the hotel after the game. We can't be messing around in the dressing room because we need to refuel after the game. So we have a team meeting. With me personally, I don't like having team meetings after 7:30 with the players, and they know that because I think they're tired at the end of the day, and I don't really get much value out of having team meetings too late. So they know that. We have a snack at night. They know they need to have a snack because they're on the go all the time, most of the time. And then they go to bed 10:30, and they know that, they accept that. You can't really police what they do in their rooms. We don't take their phones off them. We try and educate them, and definitely educate them on the use of social media, but also on the benefits of rest. When you go to bed, have a chat with your roommate, whatever, for 15, 20 minutes. We'll try and get to sleep before 11 o'clock and get your rest because it'll be beneficial to you the next day. So there's not really a problem with the players, and I really do think that they enjoy coming into the environment that's being created.
One of the big aspects you mentioned there is team meetings, but you also do individual meetings with players as well, don't you?
Yeah, we will. On occasion, it will always happen throughout the event, and it depends on. The itinerary is there, and it's a roadmap for you for the week, but sometimes you may deviate slightly from it because there may be things that will come up. You say, we need to deal with this, we need to deal with that, or look, the players are due to train today, but the weather's terrible outside, and we're going to get no benefit from travelling 20 minutes for the players to get saturated on maybe a poor pitch. So we'll do a Pilates session with the physio or the doctor. So there's room for manoeuvre in the itinerary, but it's not rigid, but it's set there and you can follow it. It's best practice, but sometimes you've got to deviate. But we'll always have space in where there's study time, which is important for the players because most of the time they're with us, they would take them out of school. So there'll be slots put in for study time, stroke rest. So for example, if we played a game on a Monday and that study time rest period is 2 hours, we may allocate half an hour of that to, say, the back four because we may have conceded or not played well the previous night in the game. So we'll bring the players in and we'll have what we call a unit meeting with them. The video analyst will have cut up some footage to highlight maybe areas that we need to improve on. And also, always with me and with the group, is always give them positive feedback because it's massively important to do that. But we will work with the players and we'll ask them some questions about, what's your opinion on this clip or this clip or this clip? And one thing I will say, the players of today, in my experience, they're really, really well educated on the game. They've a really good understanding of the game. I go back to the recipes and the ingredients. I think a lot of them would have the ingredients to be good coaches if they wanted it in the future, because I think they're getting a great education now. They're being challenged and they're being empowered with a lot of structures, a lot of the preparation of games, a lot of the tactics. We're empowering them. I might speak about that a little bit when it comes to team meetings, but yeah, we will definitely. And we could have individual meetings as well with myself, the analyst, Shane Barr, and Mark Collins, the assistant head coach, or I might let Mark and Shane take an individual meeting with a player to go through something if I'm dealing with something else. So three of staff come in, are vitally important, and to utilise your staff as well, maybe through study time. If one of the staff members may have a background in teaching, they can sit in on the study time to ensure that the players are studying correctly. So yeah, meetings, individual unit meetings will definitely happen, and I think it's massively important for players' development in real time to see how they perform. Because if you leave it go for too long and then you're referring back, it's not fresh in the mind. And I find it's a really good way for players to learn and develop is to give them that individual or unit meeting. We'll also have the team meetings in the evening time anyway, which encompasses the whole group. But it's important sometimes to have individual or unit meetings.
How important is it in either the individual meetings, the unit meetings, or the team meetings, for you, and you've alluded to there, for you to listen to the players, to get feedback from them, and to feel that it's a two-way process?
It's massive, and it's a big part of our process, and the players understand it. I'll go through a typical team meeting. So we're looking at a game, we're playing a game, say in 2 days' time, or tomorrow. Our video analyst will have to cut up the game. He will have a six or 7 minute highlight package of the game with the key moments in the game in relation to the opposition's strengths and weaknesses in the 4 functions of the game. So the players are well versed on attacking, the transitions, defending, transition to attack, and they know what those 4 functions are. So we'll show them, and they know the format of the meeting. We'll show them the 6-7 minute package. We'll have them in groups of their units, so it'll be defenders with the goalkeepers, midfielders, attackers, and we show them the video twice. So they look at the first time, they're taking mental notes. Second time around, they're bullet pointing key areas in what we've given them. So we may have given the defenders to look at how the opposition attack. We may have given the midfielders look at how the oppositions are on transition. And we may have given the forwards look at how the opposition defend. So they will bullet point key areas that they've seen in the video, and then we'll get them up to present to the group their findings. And inadvertently, their findings match what we have seen, as we'd have looked at the whole game maybe twice, and to dissect what the key areas of the game have been and the key strengths, key weaknesses of the opposition. And these players, as I said earlier, they're well keyed in. They'll be able to give you detail of how the opposition attack, what we might need to do in order to stifle that, where they might be weak, where what they're like on transition, who key players are. So when all that's done in the team meeting, then we ask the players, okay, so given all the key information that you have given to the staff, what do you think we should focus on for the game tomorrow? And we try and formulate 2 to 3 focus points. We cover all aspects of the game, obviously the 4 functions, and try and cover as much as possible. But we will focus in on 2 to 3 key aspects, what we call focus points, and they've been formulated by the players. So there's nearly complete ownership. It's obviously guided by us as coaches, but I find it fantastic because when they go onto the pitch, then they know what their jobs are because they more or less decided them. Obviously, we've got to detail maybe a little bit more of exact roles, responsibilities for the individuals in relation to whatever game it is, but they have a massive understanding, and it's their plan. It's their game. They decided what we're going to do. They've seen footage of why we're going to do what we're going to do, and I just find it invaluable. And I think it's a fantastic way of the players learning. And without us dictating to them all the time, I want you to do this, I want you to do that, this is what they'll do, so you do this. And then it's a matter then of carrying that out on the pitch, which is, that's the joy for me as a coach, is watching, seeing, observing the players' learnings being taken into action and getting a good performance.
I think that's a fantastic point, Paul, because I think coaches from every single level, no matter if it's grassroots up to elite level, can take that points and listen to their players more and be more interactive so that the players feel a sense of involvement, but also ownership of what ultimately you're trying to achieve, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think that's, it's changed a lot. I think many years ago it was all about the coach, and I go back to coach education. It was completely coach centered, and for me as an international manager or any coach, I think it's got to be player centered. It's not about you as a coach. It's not about your ego. It's not about what you really believe or what you like. It's how can I help the players? What's the best method for me to help the players and the individuals within the group? Because as I said earlier, every player is different, and it's a challenge. You're in a dressing room before a game. You've got 18 players there, and you've got starting 11, and of the starting 11, you know that 7 of them need to be really highly motivated going out to the pitch, and you know that the other 4, they'll crumble if they're highly motivated. That they need to be calm and relaxed. So how do you cater for everybody? And that's a challenge, but it's something that you've got to try and find a way to deal with. And that's where your staff can come in handy, because your staff can motivate the fellas who need to be motivated individually. Even they can find ways to stimulate them to be highly motivated, while you're not doing that to the other 4 or 5 players. So that's just an example of how I believe that you need to look at each individual. Because if you stand in a dressing room and roar and shout for everybody, there could be 3 or 4 fellas there who are having a massively negative impact on how they're going to perform. So yes, you've got to, at whatever level it is, you've got to look and take yourself out of it. It's not about you, it's about your players.
And that obviously reflects, as you said, with the staff as well, delegation and trust with the staff.
Massive, and it goes back to one of the competencies, through the UEFA framework of our coach education department. And one of the competencies, and you might put them up later on, Gareth, is dealing with your backroom staff. Your backroom staff are absolutely crucial to everything that goes on from the time that the event is decided right till the time you come home, and even after you come home, because there'll be review. And if you don't utilise your staff correctly, and you try and do everything by yourself, you try and be bravado and say, I control this and I can control that. And it was a little bit like that when I started, but now the value of delegating to your staff is absolutely crucial. And I'll give an example of an area where I struggled a lot in the early days of coaching, was the half time. I didn't know what to say at half time. You'd be going in, if you were losing or you weren't performing well, you're going in and you don't know what you're going to say, and you might say the wrong thing, and you're not really coherent, and the rest of the staff are standing around, you probably don't let anybody else speak. And I started reflecting, going back to this, the self-reflecting, self-awareness on the effect of a half-time team talk, and they were probably having a negative effect, at times. So I stood back, took myself out, and said, what do the players need at half-time? And I thought about it logically, and I said, if there are problems occurring in the game, the players need solutions to any problems at half-time. Half-time is a massive part of the game where you can have a massive impact on the outcome of the game, negatively and positively. So I tried to implement a process whereby the halftime team talk would be as productive as possible, and that involved staff. So we now have, every staff member has a document it's divided between myself and the staff member, and it's non-exhaustive. It can be added to, it can be taken away from, but that's their role and their responsibility, and they're aware of that. And as part of that, the halftime element of the game, during the first half, the technical staff all have a role to play in the formulation of the halftime team talk. So that each one will have a different aspect to be focusing on during the first half of the game. So when halftime comes, it's now a structured halftime team talk with key points from the half that need to be addressed and need to be solved. And we'll take our time and we'll formulate it between mainly myself, the goalkeeping coach, video analyst, and the assistant head coach. And we'll take our time, and maybe 4 or 5 minutes before we go into the dressing room, the players will have that time in there, they'll be discussing, because going back to the process, they'll know what the plan was because they'll have decided it. And they'll be discussing in there in the dressing room what the problems are and what the potential solutions can be. Now, they're players, they're not as experienced as we are as coaches, so you don't expect them to come up with all the solutions. So that's where it becomes our job at half time to impart that, go in, and I always ask the players what their opinion was of the half. And they will 99% of the time come back and relay to us exactly what we've just discussed, because they're so educated in the game and they have a fair idea what's going to happen in the game, and did it happen or did it not happen. And then it's what's the problem and how are we going to solve it? And we will have a solution for the players that again will be empowered to them. What do you think you should do in this situation? If they can't get it, and they may not because it's a short window at half time, we'll have to direct them then and say, look, this is what's happening. This is what we need to do. This is the problem that causes us. If we do this, problem solved. Also, on the positive side, and we always give them, look, we've been very, very good in this aspect. We did say before the game, the key area for us was our transition to defend, and it's been brilliant because they haven't caused us any problems with their transition to attack, because you really focused in on your role, responsibility, everybody in that transition to defend part of the game. So that's the half time. I know you have questions about staff, but that's implementing your staff hugely to have a massive impact on the half. Because whilst I do it myself, I'll be still probably all over the place. The six extra eyes looking at the game now, I'm getting feedback from them before we win, and before we win, and I speak, and I'll always ask the assistant coach, Mark, before I finish, have you anything to add? Because the last thing you want is, and I know from being in dressing rooms before, sometimes the manager just does all the talking and he doesn't involve anybody else. I mean, you may not need to involve anybody else, but the reason I do it is because I've often forgot to say something. You go out onto the pitch, the second half starts, and I might turn to Mark and say, oh, I forgot to say that to the players. And he'll go, I know. And I'd say to him, why didn't you say it? And he'll say, well, you never asked me. So I always give him the opportunity to speak. 9 times out of 10, he'll say, no, everything's okay. He might have the individual stuff with players, but I think it affords him the opportunity to add on to anything that I may have missed in our key points to get across at half time.
With regards to the itinerary, Paul, can we talk a little bit about training sessions and what you're looking to get out of each training session? Obviously, you have training sessions building up to games, and then you're going to have recovery sessions then after games then as well. So how do they vary? And like, do you have to get a mixture of tactical versus fitness, or like what sort of things are you looking for from each training session within this window?
Okay, so before an event, we'll have 3 training sessions. One will be match day -1, which will be a very, very light training session because you're trying to conserve energy and you don't want the players exerting themselves too much. So you can't do an awful lot in that training session. Match day -2, you can do a little bit more. You can get the RPEs up a little bit higher. And match day -3, obviously, 3 days out, we can do a little bit more. So this is all monitored, it's all planned, the duration of the training session, the size of the areas we train in, the length of time we do on tactical work, how much the players are exerted, the scale, the RPE scale. After every session, the players report that to the physio and the doctor, so we can look and see, are the players being overexerted in training sessions, because it's all geared towards optimal performance on match day, and that's physically being at their optimal and also tactically being at their optimum to perform. So every training session is different. We can do some tactical work, match day -3, match day -2, based on our first opponent in whatever event it is we're playing. Because it's under 16, it changes a lot, and you don't know an awful lot about the opposition generally, but we can get a broad spectrum of how they might perform from previous games they've played in. So we can do a certain amount of tactical work those 2 days. Then you're into match day 1. So you play your game, and it's a quick turnaround then to match day 2. You've only got 1 day window in between. So this is where, if it's an evening kickoff for your first game, it's very difficult for the analyst. He'll be under severe pressure to get the game cut up. He might be gone as soon as the final whistle goes, back to the hotel. He could be spending hours cutting up the game, getting the key points of the game, and also remembering that we've got to prepare for the game in 2 days' time. So our cycle is, when we play that evening, we try and put that game to bed as such in the team meeting with regard to, we review the game. So we review the performance of that day. That's a quick turnaround for the video analyst. And then we look at, i.e. the focus points that we've had. We'll have clips of how they were performed really well or not so. We look at the 4 functions of the game, how we performed. And again, from that with the players, we'll formulate improvement goals. And it's the players, once again, who will come up with areas that we need to improve upon as a group. And they're continuous for the season, and there'll be a long list. And the thing is, most of them are recurring themes, because the same problems occur in games of football nearly the world over, at this level particularly. So that's that meeting that night. Then the training the next day, I know you're asking about the training, the next day's training session is a recovery session for the players who've played. But the players who didn't play, they can't recover, because they will play the next day, because we're playing every player will get at least 1 start. So the detail that goes into that session, that's going to be one of the challenges for the coaches who are doing the itinerary as their task, is to detail that session. So who trains, who recovers, and who trains and what do they do in the training. Because remember, they've got a game the next day, so they can't be doing a massive amount of running with the ball, without the ball. You've got to make sure that they're still fresh going into the game the next day, but that their bodies are ready to perform. And that's a challenge in itself, and it's something that I obviously would refer to our fitness coach, Dan Maher, in regard to that. But that's the split day, we call it, where players who played more than 60 to 70 minutes will recover, and those who didn't play at all or who played 15, 20 minutes will do a session, and that's tailored for them to be at their optimum the following day. So that's the cycle. Then we played that night then, which will be match day 2-1. Our meeting that night will be based on the opposition, back to the analysis that the players will decide what the plan is and what the focus points are for the game on match day 2. The problem we have with this is that we don't have a pitch session to work on our tactical aspect between match day 1 and match day 2 when we only have the 1 day gap. If it's a 2-day gap, it's ideal because we can then go out into the pitch on match day -1 and work on our tactics. And that's why it's a challenge, and it's credit to the players that they can still perform, because our preparation is done in classroom. So our preparation is done through video, through tactic board work, and through the players' ability and their knowledge to take on information. And sometimes it's stuff that we would have covered previously with a previous event, or they may have covered the previous year with Jason, or they may have done it with their club. So, it's not an ideal world for us with having just one rest day between to getting a tactical session, but we can still get in that tactical session in the classroom setting.
Paul, let me throw a bit of a scenario at you. You've done all this prep work. You've mentioned a lot of the work that the video analyst does. But you get to game day, you're getting ready to play Israel, say, for example, and you think they're going to play. You've prepared everybody to play in a certain type of way, to defend in a certain type of way, attack and approach in a certain type of way, and then they surprise you and they have a completely different setup. How do you change, and how do you adapt to that?
Yeah, it's happened, Gareth, and it's a good question, and it's happened to us. Last year we played against Ukraine, and we prepared to play against Ukraine with them playing a 4-3-3 formation. And quite soon in the game, going back to the roles, responsibilities of the staff, Mark, who's my assistant head coach, part of his role is to analyse the opposition, their formation, and the key players. And quite soon into the game, he said to me they're playing a 3-4-3. So all of a sudden, everything we've prepared for has gone out the window. So the players' roles, their responsibilities to play against the 4-3-3 are now nearly completely changed. It's like a different game completely. They've got different jobs, they've got different responsibilities, different roles. You would love the players to be able to adapt automatically to play against a 3-4-3. Now, if they're older players and they've experience of playing against that system and know their roles, responsibilities within that, you think they might be able to adapt quite quickly. The group we had, they've never played against a 3-4-3 system. We'd never prepared them to play against a 3-4-3 system. So straight away, there's a massive challenge for us. So this goes back now to utilising your staff, which is one of the competencies of the UEFA framework. And also, as part of your education through coach education, you've got to deal with systems of play. As part of one of the competencies is preparing players for games and dealing with professional players, coaching during professional games. So all of a sudden now you can refer back to your education days and say, like, how do I deal with playing against a 3-4-3? So it's a matter then of trying to get that information onto the pitch to the players as the game is going on, and that's extremely difficult. Trust me, from experience, particularly with young players, it's hard for them to focus in on what you're trying to say and what you're trying to get across. Maybe there's a breaking play or an injury, you might be able to get key information to key players. But it was a challenge for us, and it was tough, and we were outplayed in the first half of that game. Players couldn't really cope with how Ukraine played and the way Ukraine attacked with wing backs as such, with the 3 centre backs and 2 wing backs. We couldn't cope, and they'd overloads in areas of the pitch that we were exposed in. But we got in at half time again. I go back to the video analysis down, the goalkeeping coach down, Mark's with me, the four of us was going in and we're discussing what's happening, what way they're playing, how they're hurting us. The big problem they had was they were creating massive overloads in the wide areas. We weren't pressing them in the correct manner to press against a 3-4-3 that we felt at the time. So when we get into the dressing room, eventually we said to the players, what's the problem straight away? Paul, they're playing a 3-4-3. I'm not sure whether I should do this or whether I should do that. So don't worry, okay. What do you think you should do? What do you think is our best approach? They may not come up with what we felt was the best approach for that particular scenario, so we may have to direct them a little bit more. We went with a formation, still a 4-3-3 formation for us, but maybe out of possession with 4-4-2, and we stifled them completely in the second half. And we were outplayed completely in the first half. We were 2-1 down, could have been 3 or 4-1 down. But the second half, again, we could refer back to our time as coaches and through our education and deal with systems of play, that we could delve into that and get the ingredients out of that to come up with a formula to be effective against a 3-4-3 formation. And we were fantastic in the second half. We ended up losing the game 2-1, but I don't think they created a chance in the second. They actually didn't create a chance in the second half of the game. And I can remember their coach, who I think he coached on the 21 team as well. During the first half, he was very cocky and very coy, and he was leaning against the dugout, very bullish. Second half, he was going ballistic because they couldn't get out. They couldn't get out around half. We kept winning the ball back, and we didn't score. We created numerous chances and lots of corners, and just couldn't put the ball away. But yeah, it happened. Your point happened, and all the preparation has gone out the window. In a situation like that, it's great for the players to come up against that, particularly at this stage in their career, because if most of those players play next year in the European Under-17 Championship and a similar scenario happens, they've got a great start, they've got a great learning experience to be able to know how to cope to play against a different system.
Paul, is one of the other challenges dealing with teenagers in the sense of you're all together in a short space of time, you're in a different country. You mentioned the recovery, the downtime as well. Like, are those things important as well? To be mindful, like that they do need to switch off at certain times, and be a 16-year-old.
Yeah, they're kids at the end of the day, and it is difficult for them to conform to the structure. I know it's that they like structure, they do, but after day 4, day 5, you match day -3, that kind of period between the first game and the second game can become a little bit challenging, and it depends on your group, and the different individuals within your group, and we always try and get them out. We'll always try and bring them on an activity. We might cancel one of the meetings, or have a very short meeting and have a quiz, or there's a forfeit at the end where they've got to sing a song or something, just to break the monotony of the constant structure of football. So we try and bring them to a mall, or bring them to bowling, or bring them to the cinema. Or maybe just bring them out of a hotel to eat somewhere else, rather than having the monotonous of going in and the same food, it'll always be healthy food they get. But we will try, and we're always conscious of that, Groundhog Day kind of element for the players. And that's where you discuss with your staff as well, because the players may not say anything to me because it may be a little bit fearful. If we complain to the manager, he might pick us, but they'll say it to the kit man, because he'll have a different relationship with them. I'd be speaking to him and saying, how are the lads? Are they okay? How are they feeling? And he might relate to me, say, look, they were asking could they go out. There's a game on tomorrow evening. Could you get it in the hotel from Liverpool or playing Celtic or something like that? So we'll always be mindful of that. And it's for the better. As I said, it's all about optimising performance. If I felt that by doing something outside of the structure would have a negative effect on the performance, then we won't do it. But it can be a case of they need something else to recharge themselves, or just get out of that kind of monotonous situation they're in. So, and that's not only with teenagers, that's with senior players as well. I know from speaking to other coaches that they have to break that cycle and let the boys go out, or bring them out somewhere just to get out of the whole hotel environment.
And what about from a coach's perspective? Is that also important to kind of take a deep breath and kind of take a step back at times? Like, obviously you're going to be going non-stop. You have so much responsibility on your shoulders during this period of time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Maher Connors will always say to me, you're nearly. I think he said it's day 5. I normally start hitting the wall, and he's right, because you do need time to recharge. Because I've been an assistant previously, I've been a kit man previously, and they're difficult positions, particularly a kit man. He's probably first up in the morning and last out of bed at night time. Being an assistant coach, you've got to be a crutch for the head coach, an analyst, lots of long hours cutting stuff up, getting games ready. Everybody has a role, but I think as the head coach, you're non-stop. You're non-stop in 24 hours a day. You're going to bed at night and you're not switching off. I know when I was a kid man, when your job is done, it's done. When you're an assistant head coach, for me, I'm not saying that, I think Mark has been with me, fantastic assistant to me, been really, really top class. But he may go to his room at 12 o'clock at night, and maybe he may switch off to a degree. I know he probably won't completely. But I go to bed and you're probably not sleeping, you're thinking things, you're not getting a proper night's sleep because things are going around your head. You're up then early, you're first up, we have a staff meeting. Every morning we have a staff meeting, half an hour before the players meet. So you're up before that, you may be going out for a walk at 6:30 in the morning, even at times, just to occupy yourself. And it gets to a stage where you're just jaded, and you've got to control that. There's no point in complaining about it. So you've got to manage that and improve upon that, because that can have a negative effect on your players if they feel that negative energy from you. You're extremely fatigued. So it's something that I've been again reflecting on and working on. And I find by delegating more to the staff, I'm getting a little bit more free time. And that day that I spoke about between match day 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, if the players go out for a day or they go to the cinema, I won't go. I'll let the staff go with them. I won't go. And that'll be a time where I'll try and just completely switch off and just go to the room and relax and maybe watch a movie or do something away from the football, because I feel you do need to get some time away.
You've obviously have experience of doing a number of these now over the past couple of years, Paul, in terms of the prep and the execution of a tournament. For a coach that's going in, no matter what level it is, like what are the big challenges do you think that they should be looking out for, and particularly when it comes to the assignments now as well, that they should be looking to include in their itinerary?
Okay, well, as I said, it's like, to me, it's like periodization. So a lot of coaches will have done periodization plans. An itinerary for a tournament is a periodization plan for time during that event, from the time you meet till the time you finish and beyond. You reflect when you come back with your staff. For the purpose of the coaches, I just want them to do from the time they meet up till the time the tournament is over and they get back to the country. So it's going to be a mock situation where they're in a foreign country. I think you'll put that up later. Key thing is that you plan meticulously every day and optimize every hour and every meeting that you have. They'll need to know when players should eat. If they don't, they need to research what the best practice is regarding the time that players train before they play a game, and also the optimum time for players to eat to recover. So that's all going to be factored into your itinerary. And you need to look at kickoff. So you need to look at kickoff and work back. You can't say you get up at 9 o'clock every morning. If you have an 11 o'clock kickoff, you get up at 9 o'clock. You're not optimizing the fueling of the players at 9 o'clock, so you'd obviously have to have pre-match 8 o'clock. Likewise, if you have a 7 o'clock kickoff, you've got to work back from that. When do we train? Match day. When do we have our lunch? When do we eat? What time do we have our breakfast at? Are we too late coming back to the hotel after the match? Will we get something in the ground? So all those factors you've got to take in, and you've got to make sure that you're getting the optimum out of every event that you have, every team meeting that you have. Don't have too many because players won't listen. Don't have them too late, I would say, because players switch off. Have a really clear objective for each team meeting that you're having. Have a really clear objective for each training session that you're having. Understand the importance of loading your players, and with regard to the time that you're training. Don't be training for an hour and a half, match day -1. Vice versa, don't just train for 45 minutes, match day -3. So there's lots of planning that goes into it, but everything has to have a rationale. So if you have a rationale behind something you do in your itinerary and you can back it up, I can't say it's incorrect. It may not be best practice, but I can't say it's incorrect if you have a rationale behind it. So really, to sum up, plan it, think about it, and optimize every minute of every day that you're away with your group of players to ensure that you give them the best possible chance to perform physically and tactically on the pitch.
You mentioned very much at the start of this, Paul, in terms of behaviours and how you ask the players to kind of set those parameters themselves, or they're self-police it almost. Are there certain things that you would think a coach needs to put into an itinerary? For example, do we all travel together in tracksuits? Is there a certain etiquette that when we're going to an airport or on a team bus, do you pair up? And I suppose even as well, do you select who rooms with who or who sits with who and stuff like that, even at dinner tables or in rooms?
Yeah, well, look, we're lucky enough with the international team, obviously, to have a large amount of kit. And all the players, yeah, obviously will dress the same. All staff will dress the same. Probably different colour top to the players, just to distinguish between staff and players. But yeah, going through airports again. This is all done before we leave with regard to the setting of behaviours on and off the pitch. And the players, they conform to the behaviour. The amount of times we've been complimented in hotels. I can remember we were somewhere and an elderly couple came to me. I can't remember what country it was. It may have been Hungary. And they asked, was I responsible for the players that were on floor 2? And straight away I thought, what do we have to do? Would he make a noise during the night? And, you know, this elderly couple maybe on the same floor, we run up and down the corridors. And I said yes, fearing the worst. And the couple said to me, well, they're testament to the group and to you and your staff, because their behaviour is impeccable for young teenagers. So that's brilliant to hear. And there's always going to be exceptions. And as you mentioned earlier, sometimes toward the end of a trip they get a little bit giddy and they may be a little bit horseplaying and stuff like that. But generally speaking, none of that goes on. And because they refer back to the rules, the behaviours they've set, jewellery and stuff like that, don't really like them wearing jewellery, having earrings and stuff, but they set that themselves. The rooming list is a good one, because you've got to look from experience. Starting off, I would just say the right back with the right centre back side, the right back with the right midfielder, and the 2 centre forwards together. But when you look at the whole thing with them, you go, well, they're teammates at the club, so they're always together anyway. They're not going to really bond with each other in the room. They're not going to be making new connections with players from other clubs. So there's more to a lot of coaches will say, well, I'll put the defenders together, I'll put the midfielders together. You can do that because they're going to be playing with each other. But you've got to look deeper than that and say, well, he's a bit giddy and he's a bit outspoken and he's a bit of an extrovert, and the other player there is very similar to him. So we'll put the 2 of them in the room together. They're going to be talking all night. They're probably going to go to sleep early, and they may be recipe for a little bit of messing going on. So you might put a quieter fella in with a fella maybe a little bit more outspoken and a little bit more, you know, out of shell as such, because they're only teenagers. Maybe he'll bring him out of shell, and maybe he might quieten him down if he's not speaking. So there's lots of different factors you've got to look at within the rooming list, and also at the dinner table. We encourage them as much as possible not to just sit in the same place all the time. You know, you get fellas from the same club sitting in a cluster and fellas that are mates. So look, we tell them, we ask them, can you change seats every now and then and maybe sit beside somebody else? And they do it. They accept it and they understand the value of it. And you get to know somebody better, that you're going to be, you know, on the pitches that you may need to dig you out. So it's probably hell do I know them better and I'm closer to them. So those aspects, yeah, definitely. It's definitely not just a case of make a room list, give it to the hotel, and that's it. And then you've got other fellas who will come to you and say, no, I don't like him. And you've got to be mindful of that. And you just wilt and say, okay, I'll put you somewhere else. Or you go, well, why do you not like him? And maybe you spend some time and you might like him. So there's lots of considerations. And remember, they're going to be away in a room with that person from the time you meet up, and maybe 8-9 nights. So you've got to be mindful of it. Absolutely.
Paul, can we just move on to the assignment? Actually, if you could outline exactly what you're looking for from the coaches that are going to do the assignment.
Yeah, well, I think I know they'll be given a scenario whereby it's a 4-team tournament in a foreign country. I think it's in Russia. So look, lads, you aren't going to Russia, so don't be all going with your passports. But you've got to pretend you're going to play in Russia. There's 4 teams: Russia, Spain, Poland, and Ireland are the 4 teams. You'll be given kick-off times for the games. Your flight arrangements, you can decide on them yourself as to when you arrive, so you don't have to overcome the potential logistical problems there. Well, I want you to put in that you meet up match day -3. Your itinerary from then to the time you fly, so you can fly at an appropriate time that's best suited to you to arrive in the foreign country. You've got to factor in the time zone difference. I think the scenario is going to be in August, so what the weather conditions going to be like, so that may have an effect on the length. So you've got to research this and see what the average temperatures, and you can pick the city in Russia. You can pick whatever city you want as well, if there's different climatical conditions. That's basically it. Well, I want you to focus in and give detail on 1 team meeting and 1 training session. So your itinerary can just be a periodized itinerary of time, event, you might put up a sample, Gareth, just so you can have an idea of one day. And you've got to do that, and you've got to give me a session plan. It'll be on a slide for you anyway. You've got to give me a session plan of one of your sessions, detailed session plan, rationale behind why you're doing what you're doing. So it can be, I don't really want it to be a recovery session, but you can do a recovery session, preferably a tactical session leading into one of the games, which will have to be match day one because you only have one day in between. So one training session, session plan, rationale and detail behind that training session, and one team meeting. It can be any team meeting you want. I want you to give me the objective of the team meeting, your rationale behind it, and the content of that team meeting. But that's basically it. It's a full itinerary from the day you leave, day meet, till the day you get back to Dublin. So you fly from Dublin Airport, right back to Dublin Airport, and there needs to be detail around one training session and one team meeting.
Okay, and the fact that this actually won't happen, you can send all your invoices to the FAI and we'll sort it out for the first class travel there as well. Just for all coaches who are interested in this, any license holders or anybody, grassroots coaches who've done a course with the FAI can earn up to 3 hours CPD through this. Just make sure to follow the guidelines as Paul's outlined, and you'll see the graphic on the screen as well, and email it to paul.osam@fai.ie by 1 o'clock on May 13th. Paul, thanks very much. Great insights there to your topic and bits about your coaching career as well. And thanks to you for tuning into this webinar. Let us know if you have any feedback. So you can leave some posts on social media or comments on the YouTube page. Thanks very much.